It was a few months ago on a Saturday evening that I found myself attending Rick's wedding. Now, Rick and I have been friends for a long time, but we weren't exactly the type of friends who hung out all the time. We'd grab a beer every now and then, talk about work or life, but it wasn't like we were attached at the hip. Still, when he asked me to come to his wedding, it felt like the right thing to do. We've been through a lot together, even if we hadn't been the closest lately. The wedding itself wasn't anything too fancy, but it was nice. Rick was obviously in love with his bride. It was clear they were excited to start this new chapter in their lives. The ceremony went smoothly. The reception me the reception was lively and people were enjoying themselves. I hadn't expected to stay long, but the night stretched on and I ended up drinking a bit more than I intended. I remember standing by the bar when I noticed the music slowed down. It was one of those moments where everyone started to pair up for the traditional slow dance. All the couples were out on the floor, guys, with their wives, girls with their boyfriends, and then there was Megan, Rick's mother, sitting at the table all by herself. Now let me explain something about Megan. She's not your typical mother figure, especially not for a guy like me. She's in her late 40s, but she doesn't look it at all. She's beautiful, friendly, warm, the type of woman you just know has a lot of life left to live. But I'd also heard that she'd been on her own for years. Rick's dad left her before Rick was even born, and she's never remarried. I'd seen her a few times over the years, always at gatherings like this, but we never really talked much. It wasn't that we didn't get along, it was just that we didn't cross paths much. That night, though, something just hit me. I couldn't stop noticing how she was sitting there by herself. Everyone else was paired up, and there she was quietly watching the dance floor. I could see the loneliness in her eyes, and it felt wrong, like something was missing for her. I don't know why, but in that moment I felt like I should do something. So I walked up to her. "Hey, would you like to dance?" I asked, trying to sound casual. She looked up at me clearly, a bit surprised. There was a brief pause, and I almost thought she was going to decline, but then she smiled. "Are you sure?" she asked, her voice soft. "Yeah, I'm sure," I said, smiling back. I wouldn't ask if I didn't mean it. It was kind of awkward at first, but once we got onto the dance floor, something shifted. The moment we started moving, it was like the tension between us melted away. Megan, who I'd always seen as this confident, independent woman, seemed to soften in a way I hadn't expected. She looked like she was letting go of all the weight she carried around and just living in the moment. I won't lie, I wasn't thinking much beyond just helping her have a good time. I wasn't trying to read anything into it or think anything strange. But there was something in the way she looked at me that night. It wasn't just gratitude, it was something more, something I couldn't quite place. The song ended and we both just stood there for a moment, still holding on to each other as the music faded. "You know," she said, looking up at me with a soft smile that was really nice. "Thank you." "No problem," I replied, chuckling a little. "It was fun." She gave me one last smile before walking back to the table, but something in her eyes lingered. Something that made me realize I hadn't just given her a dance. I'd given her a little piece of herself back. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the start of something I didn't expect. I didn't know it then, but that dance would change everything. A few days passed after the wedding and life went back to its usual grind. I was working 2 jobs, juggling long hours, and barely enough time to eat or sleep. It's a tough life, but I've gotten used to it. I didn't think much about the wedding after that night. I figured it was just one of those random moments where you do something kind for someone without expecting anything in return. But then one evening, as I was about to crash on my couch after a long day of work, I got a message. It was from Megan. I wasn't expecting it. Hell, I didn't even know if she had my number. But there it was, her name flashing on my phone screen. "Hey, Adrian, it's Megan. Hope you're doing well. I wanted to thank you again for that dance. It really meant a lot to me. I was wondering if you'd be up for meeting sometime soon, just to talk." I stared at the message for a while, my mind racing. What was this about? Why was she reaching out to me? It didn't make any sense. I mean, we barely knew each other. Sure, we'd shared that dance, but I didn't think it meant anything more than that. It was just a moment in time, right? But I couldn't shake off this nagging feeling in my chest. The way she said, it really meant a lot to me. It felt genuine. It felt personal. I wasn't sure what to make of it, but I couldn't help but feel curious. I didn't want to overthink it, so I just decided to respond casually. Hey Megan, no problem, glad you enjoyed it. Sure, I'd be up for meeting. When were you thinking? I sent the message and waited. It wasn't long before she replied and she suggested we meet up at a small cafe downtown. I agreed, but I still had no idea what this was about. I showed up at the cafe the next day a bit early, still unsure what to expect. Megan was already sitting at a corner table when I arrived. She looked different somehow, not like the motherly figure I was used to seeing at Rick's family events. There was something in the way she carried herself, now a certain openness, a vulnerability that I hadn't noticed before. She smiled when she saw me, and there was a warmth in her expression that put me at ease. Hey, thanks for meeting me, she said as I sat down across from her. No problem at all, I replied, trying to keep things casual even though I felt a bit out of my depth. We chatted for a while about random things, life work, small talk, but I could tell there was something on her mind. She wasn't just making small talk like we were friends catching up. There was something deeper she wanted to say. Finally, after a few minutes of awkward silence, she looked at me seriously. I've been thinking about that dance a lot, she said, her voice softer than usual. More than I should probably admit. I know this might sound crazy, but I just couldn't stop thinking about how it made me feel young. I guess like I was alive again. I blinked, taken aback. I wasn't expecting that. Megan was sitting there looking at me, waiting for my response, and I didn't know what to say. I just wasn't prepared for this. I didn't mean to make it weird, she continued quickly as if trying to backtrack. It's just, I don't know, Adrian. It felt like a moment I've been missing for so long. You made me feel like I was more than just Rick's mom, more than just this older woman who's been alone for years. I didn't know what to say to that. Part of me wanted to brush it off, make a joke, and pretend it was no big deal. But another part of me, something I wasn't used to, felt this strange connection, this unexpected pull between us. I'm not saying that I expect anything or that we should do anything about it, she added quickly, clearly sensing my hesitation. I just needed to say it to you. I sat there for a moment processing what she said. Part of me was still confused, but another part of me felt this undeniable curiosity growing. Megan was being so open, so honest with me in a way I hadn't expected. I could see the vulnerability in her eyes, and I couldn't just ignore it. I I don't know what to say either. I admitted not sure how to handle this, but I'm glad you told me. I didn't realize it meant so much to you. She smiled softly, relief washing over her face. Thanks for listening, Adrian. I wasn't sure where this was headed, but for the first time I realized that maybe this wasn't just some random encounter. Maybe it was something more. Maybe it was the beginning of something I hadn't expected. The next few weeks after that cafe meeting were a blur. I didn't see Megan right away, but we exchanged a couple of messages here and there. Nothing intense, just small talk, catching up on life and checking in. But that conversation we'd had stuck with me. It had changed something in the air between us, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I remember one evening, a couple of days after our meeting, I was sitting at home scrolling through social media when I saw a message from Megan again. She hadn't been texting me as much lately, but I could feel that her message was different. This one felt more intentional. Hey, Adrian. I know we talked about taking things slow, but I really wanted to ask you something. I've been thinking a lot about what we both said, and I just wanted to see if you felt the same way. I'd really like to spend some more time together, just the two of us. No pressure, I promise. Just, I don't know, to see where it could go. I sat there staring at my phone for a minute, unsure of how to respond. It wasn't that I didn't like her hell. I didn't know what I felt yet, but there was still a part of me that wasn't sure what was happening. Part of me was reluctant, scared even. She was my best friend's mom. That was the biggest thing holding me back. What would Rick think? What would anyone think? But another part of me felt this pull to her. Every time I saw her or spoke to her, I felt more connected, more intrigued. I liked the way she made me feel, the way she was so open and honest with me. It was refreshing, something I hadn't felt in a long time. So I decided to be honest with her. I'm not sure where this is going either, but I'm open to it. I think we should take it slow though, like we said. No need to rush things. It was a simple message, but it felt like a step in the right direction. I didn't want to jump into anything too quickly, and I didn't want to put pressure on either of us. I knew what we were doing was unconventional hell. I even knew it was risky, but there was something about her, something real that kept me coming back. She replied almost immediately. That sounds perfect, Adrian. I'm glad you're on the same page. How about we meet again this weekend just for coffee or something? I'd really like to see you again. I agreed. We decided on a quiet cafe, the same place where we'd talked before. I figured it would be a good place to keep things low-key. Oi, no one would judge us here. Saturday came and I made my way there. Megan was already sitting at our usual table looking relaxed, almost like she had all the time in the world. It was a side of her I hadn't really seen before, and I found myself enjoying it. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, she was just herself. We spent the next couple of hours talking nothing too serious, just chatting about life work and everything in between. I kept things light, but I could tell Megan wanted to talk about more. There were moments when I could feel her looking at me differently, and it made me realize that this wasn't just a casual meeting anymore. Something was building, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. By the time we finished our coffee, the atmosphere had shifted. Megan wasn't just the mother of my best friend anymore. She was someone I was starting to see as a real person, someone I could connect with on a different level, and that scared me. Before I left, she took a deep breath and looked me in the eye. Adrian, she said, her voice soft but steady. I know this is all new, and I don't want to rush you, but I want you to know I really enjoy spending time with you. You make me feel like I'm more than just a mom or a wife. You make me feel seen, and that's something I haven't felt in a long time. Her words hit me harder than I expected. I wasn't ready for this kind of vulnerability, but here it was raw and real. I didn't know how to respond, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. I like spending time with you too, Megan, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'm glad we're doing this, whatever it is. She smiled, and it was genuine. She wasn't asking for anything more than what we had, at least not right now. And that's when I realized maybe it didn't need to make sense to anyone else. Maybe it didn't even need to make sense to me yet. What mattered was that we were figuring it out step by step. As I walked away from the cafe that day, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't expected. I wasn't sure where this was going or what the future held, but for the first time in a while, I was actually looking forward to finding out. And maybe, just maybe, it wasn't such a bad thing to take it slow. The next couple of weeks passed without much drama, which I think was both a relief and a challenge. Megan and I kept things low-key, texting, every now and then meeting up for coffee or lunch, just taking our time to figure out what we were doing. The pacing felt right. I wasn't rushing into anything, but at the same time it felt like we were moving in a direction. One evening after work, I had some free time and decided to reach out to Megan. I hadn't seen her for a few days, and even though our meetings had been relaxed, there was still this nagging curiosity inside me about where this could really go. I had an idea, something simple, a dinner, not a fancy date, not anything big or extravagant, just dinner, the two of us. I wasn't sure if she'd be up for it, but I figured it was worth asking. Hey, Megan, I texted. I was thinking we could grab dinner tomorrow night, just the two of us. Nothing fancy, just a chance to hang out and talk. What do you think? I didn't expect a response right away, but just minutes later, my phone buzzed. I'd love that, she replied. How about 700 p.m. at that little Italian place by the park? It's quiet, and I think we'll get a chance to talk without distractions. I smiled at the message. It was simple and sweet, and for some reason it made me feel more comfortable than any of our previous exchanges. This felt like a step forward, a chance to see where this connection could go. No pressure, just us. I spent the next day at work thinking about it more than I probably should have. I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest. But I knew one thing for sure: Megan made me feel something I hadn't felt in a long time, something real, something genuine. She didn't have to impress me. She didn't try to act younger or more carefree than she was. She was just herself, and I found that more attractive than I ever thought I would. When I got to the restaurant, Megan was already there. She looked as relaxed as ever, wearing a simple but elegant dress, nothing over the top. Her hair was pulled back, and she looked just content. It was one of those moments where I realized how much I enjoyed the simplicity of everything we were doing. It didn't have to be complicated. Hey, Megan, I greeted, feeling a bit nervous but trying to play it cool. Hey, Adrian, she smiled back. I'm so glad we could do this. I've been looking forward to it all week. We sat down and immediately the atmosphere felt different. It wasn't a first date in the typical sense. There were no butterflies, no awkward silences, just a quiet sense of understanding between us. It felt comfortable, familiar, and for some reason that was exactly what I needed. The dinner went on without much fanfare. We talked about everything life, family, the things we were passionate about, the small stuff. Megan was easy to talk to, and I realized how much I appreciated her wisdom. She'd been through a lot, and there was this calmness about her that made me feel grounded. As the night wore on, I started to see how well we balanced each other. I could tell she was enjoying herself, and I was too. But as the conversation shifted to more personal topics, I could sense a change in her tone, a quiet intensity that hadn't been there before. "There's something I've been meaning to ask you, Adrian." Megan said, her voice soft but firm. "I know we agreed to take things slow, but do you feel this, what we have between us? I know we've been dancing around it, but I need to know. Do you feel like there's something real here?" Her question hit me harder than I expected. For a moment, I didn't know how to answer. I wasn't sure how to put everything I was feeling into words, but I couldn't deny it. There was something real. I said, meeting her eyes across the table. "I've been thinking a lot about it lately, and I do feel like there's something between us, but I want to be honest with you. This is different. It's not something I've ever done before, and I don't want to rush it. I don't want to mess things up." She nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I'm glad you feel that way. I didn't want to keep pretending like everything was casual, because for me, it's not. I care about you, Adrian, and I think we have something worth exploring if you're still open to it." Her words hung in the air, and for a long moment, I couldn't find the right thing to say, but after a beat, I knew what needed to be said. "I'm open to it, Megan," I said finally. "I just don't want to rush into anything. I want to take my time with this with you." The relief in her eyes was immediate. She reached across the table and took my hand. It was a simple gesture, but it felt like everything, and in that moment I knew she understood exactly what I meant. We were both in this, but we weren't rushing. We were doing it our way at our pace. As we finished dinner and left the restaurant, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. I wasn't sure where this was going, but I knew it was something worth exploring. Megan wasn't just Rick's mom anymore. She was someone I genuinely cared about, and that in itself felt like a huge leap forward. I wasn't sure what tomorrow would bring, but I was ready to find out. The next few months with Megan were a blur of quiet moments, deep conversations, and simple joys that came from being with someone who truly understood me. It wasn't about grand gestures or dramatic turns of fate. It was about connection, real, raw, unpretentious connection, and it was something I hadn't expected to find in a place I'd never even considered. But like anything in life, things didn't stay in that perfect, simple place forever. The more time passed, the more I realized how much I had grown to care about Megan. I hadn't anticipated how serious it would get, and neither had she, but it was clear that we were both in this relationship together for better or worse. One evening, as we were sitting in her living room just watching TV and chatting, she suddenly turned to me with a serious look in her eyes. "Adrian," she said, her voice soft, "I think it's time we talk about what we've been doing." I felt my heart skip a beat. I knew exactly what she meant. We hadn't really put a label on this relationship, and I knew it was coming. We couldn't keep ignoring the fact that we were crossing into territory that might change everything. "I know," I replied, swallowing. "I've been thinking about that too." Megan looked at me for a long moment, her eyes searching mine. "I care about you, Adrian. I really do, but I need to know. Are you ready for this? Are you ready for what this could mean for both of us?" I took a deep breath. I hadn't expected this question to come so soon, but here it was. The weight of it settled in, and I realized that I had to be honest, not just with her, but with myself. "I don't know what the future holds, Megan," I said, my voice steady but unsure. "I've never been in a relationship like this before, and I'm not sure what it all means, but I do know that I care about you a lot, and I want to see where this goes." There was a brief silence between us, a heavy pause where neither of us seemed to know what to say next. But then Megan reached out and took my hand, her fingers warm and reassuring. She didn't need any more words. "I think we've already started something real here," she said softly. "And maybe it doesn't have to be defined by anyone else's rules. Maybe we don't have to explain it to anyone." I felt a sense of relief wash over me. There was no pressure to fit this into some box, no need to justify it to anyone else. It was just us, and that felt right. That felt enough. And so we continued, not with a big dramatic declaration, but with quiet, steady steps forward. Our relationship wasn't perfect. There were challenges and there were moments when I wondered if I was doing the right thing. But through it all, I knew one thing for sure: Megan and I had found something special, something worth fighting for, even if it was just between the two of us. In the weeks that followed, we kept our relationship mostly to ourselves. Megan was still Rick's mother, and the last thing either of us wanted was to make things uncomfortable for him. But there were moments, little moments, when we let the world fade away, when it was just the two of us. And in those moments, I felt more at peace than I had in a long time. We didn't have all the answers, and maybe we never would, but that didn't matter. What mattered was that we were together, building something new, taking it day by day. And as I walked out of her house one evening hand in hand, I realized that this was just the beginning. It wasn't some fairy tale romance. It wasn't about perfection or trying to meet anyone's expectations. It was about finding something real. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had found it. Here's a question for you. If you were Adrian, would you have taken the risk to pursue a relationship with someone like Megan, knowing the potential complications with your friend Rick? Or would you have kept your distance to avoid rocking the boat?